I was sparring this guy named Sam Rass. We sparred and he was fucking me up, but I was so determined to just do my best, but it was nothing I could do. I felt helpless. That was such a memorable experience because after I got home and I got in the shower by myself, like, I broke down. And I remember people like vividly asking me, they kept asking me during my training camp, they said, how much are you getting paid to fight? Like, multiple people said that. And I was like, I'm not paying anything. Focus. You gotta have that confidence, right? You gotta be like, yo, I'm fucking better than everybody. I will fucking smash everybody. Have a crippling insecurity, a fear of not being good at all, of being shit. And that fear drives. Welcome, my brother Tig, to Only the Real podcast. Glad to have you, man.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for bringing me out here. Only the Real. It's an honor to be considered in that category, so I appreciate you.
Of course, of course. I mean, listen, it's very few of us out here. Very few. As you know, like the world that we live in today, it's very strange times. You know, people are putting on all types of facades today, and they pretend to be things that they're not. So it's rare to be able to sit down with a gentleman like yourself and have some conversations, you know?
I appreciate that.
Of course. So just to get into it, man, like you, I've been doing some research. I've been following you for a while as well. You came up with this amazing technical program for boxing, Budo boxing. But what is this thing?
I love that question because I get categorized as like a karate guy, or how is it different from boxing because of the name. Budo is a Japanese word. It just means the martial way. So what I did was I looked at boxing, and what I realized over the last 100 years, they've only systemized a little bit of it. For example, you compete, you train as well, right?
I did one fight. We'll talk about that
But
too.
you trained, right?
I did train.
So in that system, most gyms will teach you, this is the base level of most of their system. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The basic punching of boxing. But they don't really go beyond that. And what I discovered when I started going to all these different gyms is they were lacking the explanation of how they use the whole system around the body. So they were so focused on the upper body, they completely ignored the most important part of fighting.
Movement, right?
Movement. And it's actually not even movement, it's positions. You have to position your body accordingly to apply those punches. So if you're only applying those punches, and most people are able to even get decently competent, I should say, at that, and they're able to punch 1 through 6. But what you'll notice is they'll be like, oh, my footwork's shit. They'll always say that, my footwork's shit. It's not your footwork's shit. You're not applying the correct positions to apply your punches. So yes, you can call it footwork. I always call it positioning.
Right.
That makes sense?
Yeah, of course.
Because if I'm not in the right position, I can't land my punch.
Right.
If I put myself in a correct position, I can make you miss a punch. So what I did is I stepped back and said, what are all the limitations to most boxers right now? How do we systemize it all so you can get clear-cut definitions beyond 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and be able to help students without even being in the same room with them.
Wow.
Follow this system, and I will coach you through it, even virtually, because I can't be everywhere all at once.
Right. So you created a program that people are able to, are they pre-recorded videos, or are you doing one-on-one coaching?
You know what? That's the interesting part. Everyone still needs a coach. I'm a big proponent of people needing coaches and whatever they want to excel at. If I want to learn how to podcast, I'm coming to you. You know what I mean? So with boxing, it's, yes, you have to watch some structural, like, this is how you do this, so you can repeat it many, many more times, rather than me being there having to explain it over and over again, right?
Right.
So you follow the video, but then as you perform it, my biggest proponent of this course is, well, you need to keep people accountable. You need to show me the homework.
Yeah.
What are you practicing? Without throwing crazy combinations yet, can you repeat this punch correctly before we stock on more information? And that's when I come in to make sure they're doing the right things, to avoid the training scars that they're going to, pay for in the ring.
Exactly. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, so it sounds like you have an expertly crafted program, but like, give us a little bit of history about how you got started in boxing and what that journey was like to get to that point.
One word. Yeah, maybe 2. Pain, struggle, my friend. This is not an easy thing. And when you don't have correct coaches around there that aren't teaching you specific step-by-step steps, you typically pay for that, right? You get those training scars. And so you always go back to the drawing board. So I've been doing this a very long time. I started when I was 13. Nothing really clicked for me as growing up. Nothing really made me want to play football or baseball. I didn't have that calling. I was big into video games, for example. I stayed home and played. And
but fighting, though? Fighting is like brutal, bro.
Yeah, but I grew up on Jean-Claude Van Damme. Yeah. I grew up on, the action heroes that we don't really have nowadays, but I grew up with those. Those are my babysitters, right? Okay. And so what I found was like a universality to all of them. Every single one of those people, like, for example, like the Karate Kid, like he doesn't know how to take care of himself. He's not confident, right? And so as he goes through this martial arts journey, by the end of it, he's a completely different person. And unlike superheroes that we have nowadays, you can't shoot laser beams out of your eyes. You can develop yourself through martial arts. And what I found was, if they can do it, maybe I should try it, because sports don't really make sense to me. I tried team sports. I liked the brotherhood of it. I love the locker room, you're hanging out with your boys. But beyond that, like, I didn't find a way to develop myself. So when I grew up kind of in a troubled home, I was able to turn to video games as a kind of a coping mechanism, an escape. And when you're doing that, you're gaining accolades, you're developing yourself. But the moment you walk out that door away from that TV and that controller, you're not really improved very much.
What games did you play back?
Everything. Racing games, first-person shooters, you name it, man. I just really liked, I guess it was a coping mechanism. I don't want to say I really liked it. It was an enjoyable way to cope with realities of my situation. Yeah. And once I found fighting and I realized how hard it was like a video game, right? I'm challenged in this level. Right. And what I also realized was getting hit didn't kill me. I cried. It didn't feel good, of course. Those are all those things that came with it. But I was able to continue to develop myself. I kept showing up. If I just kept showing up. Right. And what I realized was, as troubled as my home life was, whenever I left the gym, I felt a little bit better. Just that's it. I felt just a little bit better. And if I could choose my pain, that was actually a better way to go.
Wow. So it seemed like, before you went into boxing and fighting, like, how were you mentally? Were you mentally strong already, or you had to develop that over the courses of all the ass whoopings you had?
I don't think people just all of a sudden come out and they're freaking Rambo. You have to develop yourself, and that only comes from struggle. One thing I always said was, enlightenment comes at the end of the punch, whether you're throwing it or whether you're on the receiving end of that. But you can't, until you go through that situation, that struggle, that pain, that process, you can't really analyze and find deeper meaning in it. So as I went through this awful process, I say awful, there's obviously a lot of highlights too, but through that process, I was able to come out better at the end of it.
100%. I mean, I can relate to that a lot. As you know, you were there at my fight. And when I say that, just the process of training, like I remember one moment particularly where I was sparring this guy named Sam Rass. He's a G. And he was a professional Muay Thai fighter. And the way that we sparred and he was fucking me up, but I was so determined to just do my best, but it was nothing I could do. I felt helpless, bro. Yeah. And that was such a memorable experience, because after I got home and I got in the shower by myself, like, I broke down. Like, I literally was like, I didn't know why I was crying. It's not like he fucked me up where like I got knocked out or something. Right. I wasn't even embarrassed. Right. But I would think I was pushed to a limit that I've never been pushed before. So like even after that experience, I'm like, that was such a deep spiritual like moment for me that it just kind of transformed like how I even approach problems today.
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of that growth we're talking about, going through that struggle, going through that pain. It's not necessarily that you discovered there was a moment in your life where you felt somewhat hopeless. You couldn't solve the problem in front of you. Right. And you got through it at the end of it, right? The bell rang, you got through it, you were able to go back to, your home, safe place, and that still kind of resonated with you, that there's some change occurred within you. You're like, that I experienced something of great difficulty, and you grew from that. That's all that was. I've had many of those going up and developing myself through martial arts, and believe me, like that's what I mean by people that you're putting yourself, volunteering to put yourself through that struggle, and most people don't volunteer for that. And I always said there's certain levels of growth that take place, that martial arts is like the hardest version of that. For example, you can decide to work out, but you can stop anytime you want. You can decide to work out, push yourself a little further, and then, okay, stop to work out. But when you're competing in, for example, a sparring situation where you're deciding to spar, deciding to push yourself when you get hit, and then you get to a point where, oh my gosh, if I do stop, this guy's gonna knock me out. Exactly. What do? I have to keep fighting. I have to keep fighting. That's where that real growth comes from. 100%. Because you don't even have control of the situation anymore. Yeah. So what do? You try to get that control. You try to survive. You try to push through till that final bell.
Exactly. Yeah. And I remember people vividly asking me, they kept asking me during my training camp, they said, how much are you getting paid to fight? Multiple people said that. And I was like, I'm not paying anything. And and it was mind-boggling to them. They couldn't understand why I would voluntarily go through something like that.
Absolutely.
Now, mind you, it was probably one of the highlights of my life. I got a third round TKO. So,
congrats, brother.
Thank you. And it was just an experience that I can look back on. I can draw energy from that. Of course. I can draw energy from that entire period of my life because I pushed so hard. Yeah. And I'm sure you've had plenty of moments just like that. What was your first fight like? What were some of the thoughts that was going through your head during that time?
I was a kid. It's that I like how you said that before I go into my story. The idea that you said you have that anchor basically in the back of your head you can use to basically ground you to moments when you're facing more moments of struggle. You're like, I've done this. I've gotten through it. I committed myself to something and saw it all the way through. That is why you do this. You're able to have those anchors in those moments, and those are only earned. I mean, if you bought your opponent, for example, you would never talk about it the same way. That's my point. So when I went through my first fight, it was a terrifying experience. Didn't know what to get myself into, didn't train correctly. But when you get through something like that, you're like, man, nothing feels better. Nothing feels better. Regular life, just everything tastes better. Everything looks better. Like, I mean, seriously, because you committed to such difficulty. And the funniest part about that, he said, as an amateur, basically, you're not getting paid as an amateur. Amateur means for the love of. Yeah.
Is that the definition?
Yeah, I believe that it comes from Latin.
Right.
It's for the love of. Somewhere in there. Don't quote me.
Right.
You know, but it's for the love of. That's why amateur boxers, amateur fighters don't get paid. And I've had that question asked to me too. Wait a second, you're not getting paid for this? No, because I was an amateur for a long time. I was scared to go pro. You know, it's a very difficult process to say I want to commit my life to fighting. But that's the point. It's for the love of the game, basically.
Yeah. That's amazing, brother. That's amazing. So what happened during your first fight? Like, what was that experience?
Oh, I won, but it was awful. Like, by the time you go to your corner, round one, you're like, oh my God, he's still standing. Oh, I have to do this again. Oh my God, I have to do this twice. It was a 3-round fight, right? Amateurs. But you're sitting in that corner going, I'm exhausted. All the negative words start coming in. Like, my legs feel like jelly now. I can't hold my arms up. All the negative starts snowballing, right? And your job at that point in that corner is to recapture that momentum and say, let's go again. I'm not done. As long as I can see my opponent, I can fight through this. And that's where that enlightenment comes after the end of the fight, at the end of that punch, as I say.
100%. That's one of the main things that I took away from that whole camp was that, like, there is no opponent. It's me versus me in there. Because if I choose to go into the ring, or if I choose to even go into a training session, and I'm fuck bullshit, like I'll fuck around, I'll just do a couple and or give up early, like that's me versus me. I'm beating myself at that point. Right. And then I feel like when I fought my opponent, I had won at the face-offs. I looked at him in his eyes, and I could just tell like he was not ready. Like right. So I mean, have you had experiences where you're able to like mentally beat your opponent before you even fight him?
I think that's why training is so important. You have those little anchors of I've pushed through this. I've pushed through this. Because if when you don't and you feel like you beat yourself, you're not going to carry that into the fight. That's why they say train so hard, X amount of rounds, so you can carry that with you. Like you win the fight in training camp, basically. Right. And I understand that what you say is like when you're in the ring, you're not fighting him, you're fighting yourself. I believe there are actually like 3 opponents when you fight. I'll give you an example of this. You have your obvious opponent, the guy staring across from you. That's fine. You have your second opponent, which is yourself. Absolutely. And then you have the clock. People forget that. Because at any point during that, if you give up on yourself or your opponent starts winning, you still have to beat the clock. Right. If you don't knock them out, obviously. Right? So can you stop the clock or can you see it all the way to the end? Because I've seen dudes put out that first round, boom, they got it in the bag. Second round, boom, they got it in the bag. Say the third round's the last round, they give up on themselves. Opponent recaptures the momentum, gets knocked out. Right. You gave up. 3 things. Don't forget about that.
100%. No, that seems very, very accurate. And one thing people don't realize that I didn't even know going into it is the amount of physical exertion that you put out during a round. Like, people think 2 minutes of doing something, oh, that's nothing.
6 minutes.
Yeah.
6 minminutes.
Yo, like, every round of my fight, I was exhausted. I was like, oh. I look back at the video and I get chills up my spine because it just brings me back to a place of like just trauma. Yeah, to be honest.
I think we briefly touched on this when we first started talking. Like fighting is PTSD. You can use that to anchor to grow from it, or you can let it crush you. Some people have an amateur fight and they're like, not for me, I'll never do it again. But I'm like, hey man, you survived. You just got through a traumatic situation. Good for you. I think you can keep doing this and keep improving to where it won't be traumatic that way. Not a negative way, but a positive way, right? But it's PTSD in a lot of ways. I think back to my fights, man. I'll be in bed and I'm like, oh crap, I remember how that happened, right? Especially the losses, especially the painful moments. But then you're like, yeah, but I came back from that, you know? Or I did something greater because of that.
I think if I was a younger man, I'd probably take a lot more fights.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, I'm 32 now, so it's like I would probably like to get into the ring a couple more times, but the commitment that it takes, you have to be all in, or it's just not even worth it.
Even the pros, man, like it's hard to wake up in silk sheets. It's like you have to do the work, right? You have to get back on it. Even if you make it to the pinnacle of being the best, you still have to wake up and get back to it and remember those moments. It is a full-time commitment. People ask me why I don't fight anymore. It's because the time commitment to do that, it's not necessarily just a young man's game. Your whole life has to revolve around it. You have to be very Spartan. You have to control as much as you can of your environment. You have to make the sacrifice for it. You have to put in the work no matter what level you're at.
And that's why even before I took my fight, or probably one of the reasons why I took the fight was because I'm a huge fan of UFC.
Nice.
I'm sure you are too, right?
Of course, I like martial arts.
Yeah, martial arts, of course. Yeah, not just the promotion, but just the art of men who put it all on the line. Like you said, those sacrifices. I remember it was a quote from Muhammad Ali. They said, "What's the hardest thing about fighting?" And he said, "The hardest thing about fighting is going to bed at 9 o'clock alone."
Yeah.
Because and avoiding the clubs and avoiding the pretty women. And I'm sure like you've had to make those types of sacrifices as a fighter as well.
Absolutely, man. I used to have to cut weight, and my boys wanted me to go out, and I'm like, well, it is Friday. I don't have to train directly in the morning. I have to train at some point light. So I'll go there, and they're drinking and they're eating, and I'm like cutting weight, and I'm just like, it's not necessary. I've been in those positions where like, yeah, let me go out, at least see my boys. Maybe they'll give me some motivation to keep pushing because, you know, your family, your brothers are important. Yeah. But, you know, then you're just like, got to go early, got to call it an early night, can't drink. That's where that sacrifice comes in. And it comes from everything, man. The moment you pick the wrong food and put it in your mouth, you know, things like that. And just, this is why people never understand it until they go through it.
Right.
You know, they always, you fight for free. Like, you don't understand the amount of dedication I need for even just this 6-minute fight, this amateur fight. They'll never understand that. That's what separates you from other people. That's what allows you to have a deeper philosophy towards life.
All right. And I'm glad that you brought that up. It separates the boys from the men. And the discipline that you are able to extract from being a fighter, that easily translates to every other area of your life. How have you taken, you know, your mindset and your discipline that you've acquired as a fighter and brought that into other areas?
I mean, just regardless, everything else is easy compared to fighting. I'll be real with you. Almost everything else, unless it's like soldiering, even sometimes that could be easy because there's a lot of just standing around, people say. But I have not stopped training. I've actually had about 20 years in the game, you could say, and I still continue to train. I still continue to eat right, still continue to sacrifice, still continue to go to sleep, even though I don't need to go to sleep early every night. You know, it's just that I enjoy that routine. I enjoy the discipline that I've developed through going through this, because I understand how much it magnifies the performance in my life.
Right.
Because if I didn't go through that, I mean, if you look around, the average person we like to talk about, overshape or has a dad bod, right? Doesn't take his life very seriously, has no discipline, doesn't even know how to basic proper nutrition, you know, and he doesn't have bros he's never trained with before. A lot of people that I grew up training with are still my closest friends, right? Because we had pain bonded through those experiences. But I carry all of that to this day. So when I even build relationships with other men, I was like, do you even know, have you ever experienced anything like this? Because that could bring us more together. I can have more respect for you. That's another example, you know?
How do you motivate your friends? Like, do you have any friends who are out of shape or, 100%. So like, do you, let's say the audience, for example, if they're sitting here watching, they're at home and they don't have much going on, and they're looking at someone like yourself, and it's like I want to wake up early. I want girls. I want to be disciplined and in shape. Like, what should they do if their life is a mess?
They can do one of two things. They can live vicariously through me, because I don't force people to do anything. I don't force people to do anything. I lead my life by example. I have some of the closest friends. I'm in great shape most of the time. Right?
That's fair.
Yeah, I do things in my life that are more adventurous than other people. I have close relationships, all that stuff. So I just lead my life on my terms. And if others want to be a part of that and they ask for my help and they're going to do something with it, I will give them the time. But I don't push people to do anything. I don't correct other people. I don't tell them how to live their lives. Let people do whatever the heck they want. Now, if they want to learn from me, I'm your number one coach, your biggest proponent to achieve whatever you want. I will help you with any knowledge and skills and resources I have. But it's not our jobs to force people to do things. That's what's messed up in the world, I think. Too much force feeding. Like, remember that was the joke with CrossFitters. They would come in, like, the moment they'll tell you, I do CrossFit, right? Like, vegan CrossFitters. I don't care if you're vegan or a CrossFitter, but they'll just keep rubbing in my face, because I don't go around telling people, oh, do you know I'm a martial artist? Is this the martial artist line at the cafeteria? Like,
I don't know when CrossFit became cool. Is that like a cool thing?
I think it died out. I think most of them have crippled now. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so going back to like the individual who you are, like you said, you're all around, you know, in shape. You have your mindset together. Imagine if, you know, you have you and then you have 100 of you. It becomes a brotherhood or an army. Well, not you individually.
See, I'll be real with you. I don't want 100 of me.
Yeah, that's not what I mean. That's not. I don't mean 100 of you individually. I mean 100 men with those principles. You have loyalty. You have discipline. You know what's good for you, and you sacrifice for those things. That's called a brotherhood.
Absolutely.
And that's why there's a shortage of them today. But you tell us about your brotherhood. What do you value in the people who you spend the time with?
I value good people. It's like you say 100 brothers, forget if you can do martial arts or you can do this. I value people that just want to continue tapping into their potential to be good, because the way you impact the world is, one, you start with yourself. Two, if you have two of you that are both on a mission of good in the world, imagine if that multiplies and multiplies. We are living in dark times. We got Doja Cats putting out Satan videos. I mean, let's be real, you know? And we have people that are lost and they don't have brothers to lift them up. And they don't have examples in society, and not enough examples in society to continue doing the right things. It is a battle, I think, at the end of the day, of good and evil. And it's very freaking unfortunate that we don't have enough good men out there. Because if you're going to go through, and for example, an amateur fight, and you're going to go through that experience, you're going to come out a better person.
1000%.
You had to sacrifice to go through that.
Yeah.
And that is how you would magnify a positive impact in the world.
Yeah, it's really hard to find good brothers. I mean, even just for me, I remember just growing up, and then a lot of the times, and the reasons why I was either just in the wrong mindset or partying or drinking too much was because of the guys that I hung around.
Of course.
And it just became like that downward spiral where it's like everything I try to do, if I'm trying to, you know, read more, if I don't want to wake up early, none of my friends are on that same vibration.
Right.
Like none of my friends want to do better for themselves, at least to the level that I want to. So when I was able to find, you know, good friends like yourself, friends like other guys who we both know are mutual friends, they like they bring you up.
Yeah.
It's that mental energy where everybody around you wants to be the sharpest. You want to be the best, and that rubs off on you.
Sure.
Like, can you speak to how important that is to your life? Like, are you able to move somewhere where you don't have any brothers?
You know, the thing I like to kind of go back and reverse engineer is you're not just seeking these people out. Like, imagine if you still had all those bad habits. You were a big drinker, you like to party, you were undisciplined, and you're going to go around men that aren't partiers but are disciplined. Yeah. They're not going to take you seriously. They're like, sorry, you're not my type of person I like to spend my time with. But what you did is you identified, you had some self-awareness that I have to fix these things. I have to sacrifice to fix these things. And when I cut those things out of my life and I realized those don't fit where I'm at right now, you're able to identify what works for you, and you're able to see that in other people. And if you're able to see that in other people, they'll most likely see that in you. And through that process, you can actually create brothers. So now, wherever I am, put me wherever, I'll figure it out because I know who I am. I'm a good person. I work hard. I have good morals. And because of that, I will seek out those people with me. I don't look at all the negative stuff, because I always wondered, how do degenerates basically find each other? Like, you know, like, you know, there's, you know, sometimes,
is there an app?
No, for example, like there's a crackhead, right? How does he find another crackhead? They both do crack, right? Like, and then there's crackheads everywhere.
Right.
It's like, those are individual people that are finding people and doing all this other stuff. And so I'm like, where are all the good people at, you know? And some people have this facade of goodness, but they're terrible people, right?
Right.
So I always, like, this podcast called Being Real. I'm always very truthful, very real with people. And that's how I was able to, project that. And because people were able to see it, take it seriously, and be like, that's real, that's authentic, because he's not breaking his patterns. He's always that person. They're like, I like that about that person. I know what to get when I'm with that person.
100%.
Yeah.
And I recently saw the podcast that you did with Andrew and Tristan. Those two guys right there are probably some of my favorite people in the world. Not only because of Andrew and his message, but, you know, the brotherhood that they share. When they went to jail, just the stories that, you know, I watched, you know, from the videos they put out, is really inspiring. I wish I had that relationship with my brother. Can you speak to, like, the friendship that you have with them? Like, what is that like? Because I feel like they're like at the top echelon of men in the world. How do you experience that?
I mean, it's interesting because since I grew up in a fight gym, name of your podcast, once again, it's real. Fighting is real. Are you a good teammate? Are you there just to take or provide value? And through even martial arts, we had that connection, especially Andrew, because he went through it. And because of that, they were able to see, like, is this person real? Is he going to be authentic at the same time? Can he actually fight? These are values that resonate with them, and they saw that I was real, and that's how we built that bond. But with them, I understand they have crazy influence in society, but at the end of the day, I just look at them as like some of my closest training partners. And through that, we built that friendship. We've sparred, we've trained together, we've piggybacked ideas, and I respect that brotherhood they develop because they continuously push men to be better, to tap into their potential for good, to magnify that within the world.
I mean, 100%. Even, let's say about a year and a half ago, I had no idea who Andrew or Tristan were. And I think my life was very stagnant. Like, I was in a point in my life where I was looking for something to do. I was kind of coasting, as you could say. I would, you know, be working here, doing a little bit of this, doing a little bit of that, making some money. But I would be partying on the weekends just because
Sure.
I didn't have those friends like we spoke about earlier, and I didn't have a clear direction of what I wanted to do. I would say like through his content and other like people like yourself and people who are preaching things that have a positive impact, I was able to turn myself around in a crazy way. If it wasn't for that or him or his message, I wouldn't be sitting here with you. So it's just amazing to see like when people have a platform, and going back to like all the crazy shit that's out here in the world right now, people abuse or take for granted the voice that they have. They don't speak truth.
Absolutely.
They don't speak to the highest ideals of man. They put out poison, like you said, Doja Cat, Lil Nas X.
Of course.
Like it's really sickening. So. What's your thoughts on the state of the world right now?
I think I mentioned it, man. We live in dark times. One of the things I think was missing in society for a long time is we don't have those people in certain positions that are able to actually share the right messages. Like, for example, if you feel lost in fitness, you're going to look up fitness influencers, right? But if they're drug addicts, you might even end up doing that too. So they abuse their position of responsibility. And Andrew, if you look at him like, oh, he's in shape. Oh, he can make money. Oh, he has great brothers. I want that too. And most men don't have enough of those positive influences in society anymore. Yeah. And fortunately, we do live in dark times. Regardless if you're Muslim, Judaism, Christianity, Andrew found his faith, and he's also promoting find faith, because we live in troubled times now, and we're constantly influenced negatively. You can say the voice of the devil, right? So, like, drugs are cool. That's the voice of the devil. Like if you're gonna abuse drugs, you're gonna feel some negative consequences in your life. Yeah. Right. But if he's like, find your faith, because you need some sort of faith in society nowadays. You need some sort of greater good, and I think morality is detrimental right now. Society's, excuse me, what's the word I'm looking for, is going away, unfortunately, now, because not a lot of people have faith. Because when they turn to certain preachers and they don't take them seriously, they just don't take them seriously enough to like, okay, you're a preacher, but you're like 300 pounds, right? Or you're a preacher and you don't have a positive relationship with brothers or women or anything in your life. So I can't take you seriously. So I do believe we need more faith in society.
I don't know if you've ever been to a black church. Yeah. But it's a theater.
In a good way or bad?
No, theater in a bad way. Like it's theatrics.
Oh,
so like you go into a church and the preacher would get all hyped up and they start throwing the holy water around and people start jumping in. And even from a very early age, I was able to recognize that something just isn't right about this. Like it just seems so fake.
Disingenuous. Huh?
Disingenuous. So, that kind of forced me to kind of do my own digging for my own purpose to figure out what else is out there in the world. I came across a lot of esoteric books on wisdom, books on the history of certain religions, and I was able to find a perfect middle ground for me that allowed me to believe in a higher power, but not necessarily aligning with the specific faith or religion. But I respect all religions, all walks of life. I believe that all of them lead to God in the end. So you're 100% correct. I think everyone needs to see or know that there is something bigger than greater than themselves, and that just when you look at what's happening in the world, like I said before, is a battle versus good and evil. Really so what side are you on?
You have to pick one. I'm on the good side. So don't look at me when you ask me that. Yeah, I'm on the team good. Point I'm trying to make is this: you need to find your faith, whatever it is, because fighting is very spiritual. You've been through that, right? You sometimes realize, I know people that cross themselves before they walk in. I used to do that as well, because you're going through, you have to rely on yourself, but you also have to understand that you're going to get through this. And it's nice to know that you have some sort of faith to help you push those difficult moments. When I started discovering my faith and I started going through that process, there's a voice, I would say, you read that resonates with you, but you have to seek it. Right. Because if you look at society, we live in dark times. All we get are negative voices. Do drugs, drink, backstab your friends. They say all these awful things, but you need to seek the other voices too. And once you do, you realize, oh, those are detrimental to my life. So as you start finding your faith, you start trusting that, you start trusting yourself more, you want to do more good in the world. All right. Yeah, so I think everyone needs some sort of faith in their life.
That's a very key point that you mentioned. You mentioned you have to seek out what's better for you. You have to seek out better friends. You have to seek out a better way of life, a better way of living. You have to seek out knowledge. Absolutely. And it's really disappointing what you said. I'm really concerned about like the world that my son's going to grow up in. He's 13 years old now, and he'll go to school and come back singing this some new song that's on the radio. That's some bullshit. Yeah. And I'm really upset at the music culture that we have, because it's just poison. It's like it's poisoning the minds of the youth.
Of course.
like when you have the Doja Cats, when you have the Lil Nas X, and not to call them out specifically, but they're great examples of what should not be in the world.
Of course.
Like, it's just sick, man. It's just sick.
It can be, but I mean, hip hop in particular, right? Hip hop's really cool. Hip hop's you say words like G, pimp, this and that. These are technically they're words. They're words. You can have fun with them in a sarcastic way, right? But that's not the necessarily. You don't believe that. It's just fun. It can be enjoyable to say these words.
Right.
Doesn't mean you have to live that life. Like, people walk away like, fuck bitches, get money, right? They always say these things, but it's just like, you guys still have to act on that. You still have to pretend you want to do these awful things. You can just laugh about a song, have a good time, have a good energy from that. But yes, you are listening to words that are influencing your thoughts in a weird way.
Yeah, no, but not when you like when you're 13. Like when you're our age, you understand that.
I heard a kid singing "Gangster's Paradise" this morning. I'm not even kidding. I was like, great song. I mean, not necessarily feel good, but great song. But it's just like, kid, you need to experience life. You know?
Yeah. I think it's important to have that balance. Like I might listen to you know that type of music as well, but I'll have books with me, or I'll have other songs that'll counter that. What are some of the influences? What are some of the things that you feed your mind in a positive way that'll take you to the next level?
Faith is really interesting. I think everyone needs to, whatever religion you're in, or even if you want to read all the books, read the Bible once. I think that's really interesting. You get a lot of knowledge in it. There's a reason that book has lasted, what is it, millennia plus now? I don't even know. But point is, you should expose yourself to that. There's good word in there. There's good faith in there. So that's actually one I've been kind of revisiting lately. And on top of that, it's just everything is good. There's a lot of good in a lot of different ways you can accept that. Movies have some good in it, right? But universal truths, love, friendship, loyalty. Exactly.
Yeah.
See, you said it.
Yeah.
Because these things are universal truths. They've lasted the test of time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you're listening to awful, depressing music all the time, you're going to feel depressed. Think about that, right? So you have to counteract that, right? So if you decide to expose yourself to the bad, you should also, obviously, you have to seek the good to counterbalance that.
Yeah. Because if you that's all you're exposing yourself to, and then if you're looking around right now and wondering why your life is shit, then that's probably the reason why. It's what you're being around, what you're exposing yourself to. That environment is so crucial to the conduciveness of your being.
Absolutely.
To be honest. Just going back to fighting for a little bit, who were some of your favorite fighters? Were you Muhammad Ali fan?
Muhammad Ali was one of the greatest, I'd say, inspirational. It's not necessarily a boxer.
I'll say
icon, right? Person, individual, showman, prize fighter. I look at him that way. I don't look at him necessarily say Muhammad Ali is the best boxer on the planet. I think he's one of the best people on the planet in a lot of ways. Very inspirational. Right. His words, his quotes, everything he went through, even outside of the ring, is why I find him so fascinating.
Right.
But yeah, of course, you got it. Tyson's another one of them, of course. But it depends on what category you're asking me. Is it like technical prowess, or is it going to be like as an individual, right?
Only a boxer would know the difference between technical prowess. So, I mean, were your top 3 fighters technically?
Ooh, all right. This is a tough one, right? I would put Mayweather in that category.
Is he
Mayweather is defensively, offensively, whenever he wants. It's one of the most perfect boxers, I think. You obviously have Terrence Crawford nowadays. People finally got his name out.
Him and Errol Spence. That was they thought that was going to be a lot more competitive than it was. He fucked him up.
It was good. It was very good.
It was a masterclass.
I've been following him for a long time, so obviously him coming out there like that and finally getting the belt, I was so excited for the guy. I don't know the guy, but I was just so proud to see all the years of hard work he's been doing kind of as an unknown, and he finally proved it.
Did you know that he was going to win?
100%. I should have bet the bag on that. Honestly,
Right.
I don't sports bet. Sometimes I should.
Yeah,
I was
right.
like, that one, I was like, that horse in that race, I would definitely do it. Here's the curveball. Number 3, you ready? Have you ever heard of a guy named Kostya?
Kostya, I have not.
Yeah, dude, this guy was a goat. He was Russian out of Australia, and he would fight kind of in the 90s and late in the early maybe 2000s. But he beats Julio Cesar Chavez in his prime. Like that's the type of fighter I liked. Super technical boxer punches, what they would consider him. He could box, he could bang in the pocket if he needed to, but that was one of my inspirations growing up.
Really?
And yeah, it's kind of an unknown. You've probably seen one of his highlights of him knocking somebody out, and you didn't know who did that.
You got to send me something.
Yeah,
he
absolutely.
Sounds like a beast.
Yeah. There's a clip of him knocking out Zab Judah when Zab Judah gets up and does like the funky chicken dance.
Oh, no, I don't remember.
You've seen this
No,
clip.
okay, I
If
probably
you've watched
have.
any boxing highlights, you've seen this clip.
Wow.
But he just hit him with the cleanest jab cross, and it was just like, that was inspirational to me. I was like, I want skills like that.
Right. Yeah. That's a beautiful. I think my first memory of boxing, I remember sitting in the living room with my grandparents. It had to be like 96, 97.
Nice.
And it just being, I remember it's such a memorable moment because I remember looking around at all the faces and everybody was just glued to the TV.
Yeah.
And as a child, I'm like, what the hell is going on? So I'm looking at the screen and this is Mike Tyson I don't know who he was fighting, but I just remember he fucked somebody up really quickly.
Like Mike Tyson quickly fucked somebody up?
Right?
No way. I don't buy it. Who?
No, exactly. And he was just ferocious, man. So going back to like that trauma that fueled him, I think he was a perfect example of somebody who took trauma and transmuted it into something in a way that was productive in that discipline. And he's just a fucking beast because of it.
I will challenge you a little bit on that because I think Mike didn't know that was possible because he was going through that trauma until someone like Customato got eyes on him and realized, I can save this kid. I can turn that trauma into something powerful to dramatically improve his life. Because he wasn't, I don't think if Customato was in the picture and the moment he left the picture, you saw what happened to him. He lost that guiding star.
What happened?
What do you mean what happened?
When he like married Robin Givens and got...
Well, no, before that, let's just say this. Super traumatic youth, found Customato, found purpose, found guidance, found knowledge. And with that, he was able to become one of the first...
youngest world champions.
One of the youngest, I think, if not the youngest. Anyways, youngest heavyweight champ. And then once Customato passed, what happened? Environment changed, right? He didn't think he needed to work as hard anymore, and it was just a snowball effect of negativity. And then he hit rock bottom, and obviously he's bounced back. Now he's grandpa. He's Mike Tyson's grandpa to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because he has all that wisdom now. He
be dropping jewels now.
Yeah, he's just imparting all the wisdom that he went through. He's lived a full life. Highs, lows, you know? That's incredible. But it's not that he just used that trauma. It's what Customato did is he found that little flame, and then he kindled that flame to do something positive.
Yeah. No, I think without Customato, there would not be a Mike Tyson. I agree 100%. Customato was the one to take that, like you said, take that energy, and he kind of give it direction.
Absolutely.
You know, so that was very beautiful. And then like going to Mayweather, didn't he retire at 50-0?
I believe so, yeah. I mean, he's still fighting, so who knows what his record is nowadays, even though it's not like the pinnacle of boxing.
Yeah.
But
do you think that there's anybody who could have beat Mayweather in his prime? Like that,
Absolutely
just
not.
that he might have avoided them or something?
I don't know. This is what they say about fighting. I honestly believe it depends on who performs that night. If you run it back in some weird simulation, it'll still be 50-50 because you just don't know. So it's whoever is good on that night, and that's what makes fighting so hard. All the stars have to align. You know, your mental game, your physical game, your training camp, everything has to align. And hopefully the politics aren't involved with like bad judging, right? Everything has to align to get that victory. I do think at his prime, he was the best in his weight.
Right.
I do.
Shit, what all the stars aligned 50 times in a row is ridiculous.
That's my point. And the thing people don't like Mayweather, I don't necessarily have to look at his outside life. I observe him as a fighter, as a boxer. And because of that, I always take inspiration from his boxing. Whatever he wants to talk, money, Mayweather, throw money at the screen, not my concern. But when he boxes, it's so beautiful to me. I need to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
And how can you not respect somebody that's doing it at that level? You know,
I think,
and over and over and over again.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm sure maybe you can speak to this. Like when I see Mayweather, I see someone who's just rolling his shoulders, avoiding punches. Like you, I'm sure with your technical eye, what is he doing that is beating these guys? Because I think I remember one fight where he fought Shane Mosley. I think that might have been his toughest fight. I know he got hit one time and it like kind of rocked him a little bit.
Marcos Maidana was his toughest fight.
I saw that. Yeah.
I'll tell you that one.
Okay.
But you're talking about the moment when Shane Mosley cracked Mayweather as hard as possible, and then Mayweather was able to problem solve and adjust. So what does Mayweather do? At the end of the day, he solves the problems, and he'll make you make mistakes. You hit him with the silver bullet, he takes your best punch, he adjusts, and he wins the fight. Whether that's defensively to make you make mistakes and then counter you, whether that's offensively, he's got you on the back foot and he puts a little pressure on you. He can do it all. That's what makes him such an amazing boxer. The thing is, though, if he's the champ, you have to come take it.
Right.
So if you watch his fights, his earliest rounds, he wins those rounds. With the jab, he's a little bit more aggressive, and then he starts playing counter game.
Yeah.
The Marcos Maidana fight,
I remember that. And then so during that fight, I think they was kind of close, but it wasn't enough for Maidana to take it. And then I swear I thought that Maidana was going to come back on the second one, and he got smoked.
Why? Do you know why?
I would say probably because Mayweather had figured out the chess game.
Correct.
Against him.
And Marcos Maidana woke up in silk sheets. He got paid for that fight. Yeah. Everyone knows that's a money fight, right? Yeah. So he got paid for that fight, and he's like, I can't beat him. I already couldn't beat him once. Instead of coming back hard, he's like, I'll just take the paycheck.
Yeah.
Right? But he did hurt him. He hurt him very bad because Marcos Maidana's game is he's actually not the most technical fighter, but he'll keep coming forward and keep swinging. And that's dangerous because typically in order to get to that level, you have to throw clean punches. Mayweather's able to identify those patterns perfectly.
Right.
But Marcos Maidana throws sloppy punches and never quits.
He was throwing like punches from up top, like
ugly, sloppy punches,
Yeah.
but he never quits. Great conditioning, great chin. That's a dangerous fight for anyone. And that's why I think they even had a rematch because even Mayweather personally said, man, that was too close.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure him out. So then they went back, obviously, and fixed it.
Yeah, that was over. That was probably a bad mistake or a good mistake for Maidana.
Everyone got paid. We got some entertaining fights.
Yeah.
But that first fight, that was good.
And speaking of entertaining fights, we have Logan Paul and Dylan Dennis.
I thought you said entertaining fights. What's wrong with you?
Well, it's an entertaining show. Like I don't know if you're familiar with all the shit that's happening right now.
Drama. There's 3 types of fans. Are you familiar with them?
Okay, tell me. I don't know.
The drama seekers, which is going on right now, the purists that just want to watch the art and display, and the people that want violence. And sometimes you can mix the two. I want the artful violence, right? But I don't care about the drama. I'll watch WWE if I care about drama.
Yeah.
I'll watch theater. You know what I mean? I don't care about all that other stuff. It's how you sell fights.
They are selling the shit out of this fight. I want to see it.
Oh, like Jake did with Nate. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I just want to see a good fight.
Okay, so what are your thoughts on all the YouTube boxing? Are you just it's just entertainment?
It's interesting to me. It's entertaining, but we always talked about, I think we talked about it a little bit earlier with having role models in society. Now, these people have a position of some sort of authority, even though they don't realize it's responsibility. They have a voice, right?
Yeah.
They have influence. And even though these YouTubers have influence, forget the art of boxing. At least they're bringing attention to it. At least more young men might say, well, if Jake's doing it, I'll actually try it out too.
Yeah.
You know, because we don't have action heroes anymore. We have YouTube influencers. And if those people can at least send that message out to maybe even save some lives, you know, get people out there to realize how hard this is, how much commitment you need, how much dedication you need. And if you want to be a level like Jake to be able to talk, you have to go through that. Right. So maybe more young men, women, whatever it may be, will get involved in martial arts. So I do believe there's a lot of good that can come out of this with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, since you are 100% for the betting line, who you got, Logan Paul and Dylan Dennis?
God. Dylan Dennis could strike, he'd be a champion. You know what I mean? He was already fighting. Like,
yeah.
That's my point. I don't care about the drama. I'm talking about it from a technical prowess.
Okay, so you think Dylan Dennis isn't that good of a boxer? Then?
Correct. If you're going to go box, and the guy's been boxing, or at least is bigger, stronger, and can box, he's going to probably win it.
Yeah. Oh.
There's my prediction.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting night. Any last words for the people at home, man?
I think everyone needs to discover martial arts for them, whatever it may be. I think it's a huge vehicle to improve your life. BJJ, boxing, kickboxing, I don't care. Seek out the challenge, volunteer for it. You will become better because of it.
100%. I'm a testament to that, and it's beautiful to watch you. Definitely on your YouTube channel and on your Instagram, you give a lot of good game on there on how to be technical, how to even wrap your hands. I think that was one of the highest viewed videos I saw.
You know how ahead of the game I am? Because I launched that rap guide. This is how bad the game of coaching is in boxing, unfortunately. I created a hand wrapping guide 2-3 years ago. I had it for my clients way back in the day because they was asking me, oh, I forgot how you showed me how to do that. I'm like, well, go practice at home. Here, I'll send you a video. But the problem with a lot of martial artists now is they don't even know how to innovate. I told you the game has been dead for like 100 years. Yeah. So when I created a POV, I was like, my students, if I just do it and they watch me, it's reversed. It's mirrored. Their mind is backwards. So when I was like, let me help them out, POV rap. And now every other person is releasing POV raps. Ooh. Yeah, man, I'm way ahead of the game.
The trendsetter, Budo boxer.
I'm telling you, bro. I'm running laps on these guys, and then they'll claim it as their own, or they'll start trying to nitpick this stuff. And I'm just like, do you, bro? But you don't innovate enough because a lot of these guys are brutes. They're very base level. Right. They're not necessarily philosophers. They're not necessarily looking at how to continuously innovate. Kaizen method on their own teaching methods. They're complacent. They're comfortable. Another big issue with society.
Right. And that's why you're one of the best in the game.
I fully agree with you on that.
Hey, it's a pleasure, brother. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, guys.